TIFU by discovering that my wife of 6 years has been maintaining an elaborate fake identity online, and her internet friends showed up at our house thinking she was someone completely different. This didn't happen today, but rather unfolded over the past 2 weeks, and I'm still processing the absolute insanity of it all. I need to write this down because honestly, I'm not sure anyone would believe me if I told them verbally, and my therapist suggested documenting everything might help me make sense of what the hell just happened to my marriage. I, 34M, have been married to my wife Sarah, 32F, for 6 years, together for 8. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, hit it off immediately, and had what I thought was a pretty honest, straightforward relationship. She's a freelance graphic designer who works from home. I'm a high school chemistry teacher. We have a nice house in the suburbs, 2 cats, and what I genuinely believed was a solid, drama-free marriage. We're not perfect, who is? But we communicate well, rarely fight, have an active social life with shared friend groups, and generally enjoy each other's company. Sarah has always been online a lot, which never bothered me. She's on Instagram, she has a Facebook, she's in some Discord servers for her design work, all totally normal stuff. She's also been part of some online gaming communities. She plays a lot of MMORPGs and has always had online friends she games with. I'm not a gamer myself, but I never thought twice about it. She'd mention her guild members or talk about raids, and I'd nod along supportively, even if I didn't fully understand the terminology. Sometimes she'd be on voice chat with them while playing, and I'd hear her laughing and joking around. It seemed healthy. She had her hobbies, I had mine. I'm really into woodworking and play in a recreational basketball league. Here's where things get weird. About 3 weeks ago, I came home from school early because we'd had a half day for teacher professional development that got cut short. I walked into the house around 2 p.m., which was unusual since I normally don't get home until 4:30 p.m. Sarah was in her office on a video call, and I heard her talking as I came up the stairs. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but our house isn't that big, and her office door was open. The voice I heard was not Sarah's voice. I mean, it was her voice, but the accent was completely different. She was speaking in what sounded like a British accent, and not just any British accent, but a very posh Southern English accent. I stood in the hallway, confused, thinking maybe she was doing some kind of voiceover work for a client. But then I heard the content of what she was saying. She was talking about her flat in London, about how she'd just come back from visiting her mum in Surrey, and how she was knackered from the tube commute. I was baffled. I waited until she finished the call, and then walked into her office. I asked, in what I thought was a light, curious tone, "Hey, were you doing a voice acting thing? I heard you doing a British accent." The look on her face was pure panic. Like a deer in headlights, complete shock and fear. She immediately got defensive and said she'd been on a call with a client who was British and she was just matching their energy to build rapport. It was a weird explanation, but I didn't have any reason not to believe her, so I shrugged it off, though it stuck in my mind as odd. Over the next few days, I found myself paying more attention. I wasn't snooping, at least not intentionally, but I started noticing little things. She'd quickly close her laptop when I entered the room. She'd take her phone with her everywhere, even just to go to the bathroom, which wasn't typical for her. And a couple times when she was gaming, I'd hear her slip into that accent again when she thought I wasn't around. I felt guilty for being suspicious. Sarah had never given me a reason to distrust her, but the behavior was just strange enough that I couldn't shake this nagging feeling that something was off. Then, about 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday morning, everything exploded. I was in the garage working on a bookshelf I'd been building when the doorbell rang. Sarah was upstairs in the shower, so I went to answer it. Standing on our porch were 3 people, 2 women probably in their late 20s and a guy around our age. They were dressed like they'd just gotten off a plane, with rolling suitcases and looking a bit tired. One of the women, a bubbly blonde, immediately smiled huge and said, "Oh my God, you must be Oliver. We've heard so much about you. Is Emma home?" I just stared at them. "I'm sorry, who?" The 3 of them looked confused. The blonde said, "Emma? Emma Whitmore? This is her address, right?" She showed me her phone with our actual address on it. "There's no Emma here," I said. "I'm David, and I live here with my wife, Sarah. I think you have the wrong house." Now they looked really confused. The guy checked his phone and said, "No, this is definitely the address she gave us. We've been planning this visit for months." Something clicked in my brain, a horrible, sinking feeling. I asked them to wait a moment and went back into the house. Sarah had just come downstairs in her bathrobe, hair still wet. I said, "There are 3 people at the door asking for someone named Emma Whitmore. Do you know anything about this?" The color drained from her face. She looked like she might throw up or pass out. I couldn't tell which. She whispered, "Oh my God. Oh my God, they actually came." "Who actually came?" "Sarah, what is going on?" She started crying, which was shocking because Sarah is not a crier. In 8 years together, I'd seen her cry maybe 3 times total. She was sobbing, saying she was sorry. She didn't think they'd actually show up. She didn't know what to do. I was completely lost. I went back to the door and told the 3 confused people that there had been some kind of misunderstanding and asked if they could give us a few minutes. They agreed but looked understandably bewildered. I sat Sarah down and demanded an explanation. What came out over the next hour was so bizarre that I honestly questioned whether this was real life or some kind of elaborate prank. For the past 7 years, including 1 year before we even got married, Sarah had been living a complete double life online. She had created an alternate persona named Emma Whitmore, a 30-year-old freelance photographer living in London. She'd created social media accounts, a whole backstory, and had integrated herself into an online gaming community as this completely fabricated person. As Emma, she had a different personality, more outgoing, funnier, more confident. She'd told these online friends that she lived in a London flat, worked as a photographer, was in a relationship with a guy named Oliver, who was a financial analyst, and had an entire life story that was completely fictional. The 3 people at our door were members of her gaming guild who had planned a meetup. They'd been talking about visiting Emma for months, and apparently, Sarah kept making excuses for why it wasn't a good time. But they'd gone ahead and booked flights to surprise her, thinking they were coming to London. When they'd video called with Sarah to coordinate, she'd panicked and given them our actual address in suburban New Jersey, thinking they wouldn't actually follow through. But they did follow through. Except they'd thought they were flying to London, and Sarah had somehow convinced them that the address was in London. I still don't fully understand how she pulled that off, but apparently, they'd never actually video called from her flat, only from her office, which she'd decorated ambiguously enough that it could look like it was anywhere. I was absolutely reeling. I asked her why. Why would she do this? Why would she create an entire fake person? And her answer was both heartbreaking and infuriating. She said that when we first met, she'd already been Emma online for about a year. She'd created the persona during a really low point in her life when she was struggling with depression and social anxiety. Being Emma allowed her to be someone different, someone more interesting, someone without her insecurities and baggage. It was escapism. When we started dating and things got serious, she knew she should come clean to her online friends or just fade away from that community. But she didn't. She liked being Emma. She liked having this separate space where she could be this other version of herself. And as time went on, it became harder and harder to untangle the lie. She'd been maintaining this double life for years. When she was gaming for hours, she wasn't just playing, she was being Emma, chatting with these friends, maintaining the persona, building deeper relationships based on a completely fabricated identity. She'd even created fake social media posts showing her flat in London, using photos she'd found or manipulated to maintain the illusion. I asked the obvious question. Did you have an emotional affair as Emma? Were you romantic with anyone online? She swore no. She said Emma was in a relationship with the fictional Oliver specifically to avoid any romantic situations. But she admitted that the friendships she'd built as Emma were deep and meaningful to her, and that in some ways, she'd been more emotionally intimate with these online friends than with our real-life friends, because she could be more herself. That hurt. The implication that she was more herself as a fake British woman named Emma than as Sarah, my actual wife. I didn't know what to do about the 3 people still waiting outside. Sarah was in no state to face them. So I went back out and tried to explain, without going into too much detail, that there had been a significant misunderstanding and that the person they knew as Emma had not been entirely truthful about her identity or location. They were, understandably, upset and confused. They'd spent money on flights, had taken time off work, and felt completely betrayed. The blonde woman started crying. The guy got angry, saying this was insane and potentially dangerous. What if they'd been dangerous people showing up at someone's house based on fake information? I apologized profusely on Sarah's behalf, offered to help them find a hotel since they were now stranded in New Jersey instead of London, and gave them some money to cover their immediate expenses. They left, but not before the guy said he'd be sharing what happened with their entire online community so others would know Emma was a fraud. After they left, Sarah and I had the biggest fight of our marriage. I told her I felt like I didn't even know who she was. She'd been lying to these people for years, maintaining an elaborate fake life, and I'd had no idea. What else didn't I know? Could I trust anything about our relationship? She insisted that everything between us was real, that she'd never lied to me about anything important, that Emma was just a fantasy that got out of hand. But how could I believe that? She'd proven she was capable of maintaining an incredibly elaborate, long-term deception. She'd spend hours every week being someone else, and I'd been completely oblivious. The next few days were awful. Sarah was devastated and ashamed. I was angry and confused. We slept in separate rooms. I told some of my close friends a vague version of what happened, and they were as baffled as I was. The fallout online was apparently intense. The guy from her guild did exactly what he'd said he'd do and posted about the whole situation. Sarah's Emma accounts were flooded with messages from confused and angry people who felt betrayed. Some people didn't believe it. Others shared their own stories of becoming close with Emma and feeling like they'd lost a real friend. Sarah ended up deleting all of Emma's accounts. She wrote a public apology explaining that she'd been dealing with mental health issues and had created a persona that spiraled out of control, but she knew that didn't excuse the hurt she'd caused. Some people were understanding, many were not. We started couples counseling immediately. The therapist has been helping us unpack why Sarah felt the need to create this alternate identity. It goes deeper than I initially realized. Sarah has always struggled with feeling boring or inadequate. She felt like she wasn't interesting enough, that her real life wasn't exciting, that she was just a generic suburban housewife. Emma was everything she wished she could be: adventurous, worldly, confident, living in an exciting city. The therapist explained that this type of online identity creation isn't uncommon, especially for people dealing with depression, anxiety, or low self-esteem. It's a form of dissociation, a way to escape from reality. But the fact that it went on for so long and became so elaborate is concerning and suggests deeper issues that Sarah needs to work on. I'm trying to be understanding and supportive, but I'm also hurt. I feel like I've been living with a stranger who's been spending a significant portion of her mental and emotional energy being someone else. I wonder if she wishes she could actually be Emma, if she resents being stuck as Sarah with boring David in boring New Jersey. We're also dealing with practical concerns. What if those online friends decide to escalate things? What if they report Sarah for fraud or something? The lawyer we consulted said it's unlikely anything legal would come from it since no money was exchanged and no explicit fraud was committed, but the whole situation is messy. Sarah has been completely transparent since everything came out. She's given me access to all her devices and accounts. She's committed to individual therapy in addition to couples counseling. She's been remorseful and is genuinely trying to work on the underlying issues that led to this. But I don't know if I can get past this. Every time I look at her, I think about Emma. I think about the hundreds of hours she spent being someone else, cultivating friendships with people she'd lied to, maintaining an entirely fabricated existence. I question whether the person I fell in love with is even real, or if she's just another persona Sarah created. My friends are split on what I should do. Some think I should leave, that this level of deception is unforgivable and indicative of deeper problems. Others think that people make mistakes, mental health issues are real, and if she's willing to work on it, the marriage is worth saving. I genuinely don't know. I love Sarah. Or at least I love who I thought Sarah was. But how do I reconcile that with this revelation? How do I trust her again? And maybe more importantly, how does she learn to be comfortable being herself instead of needing to be Emma? So, yeah, I fucked up by discovering this. Or maybe Sarah fucked up by creating Emma in the first place. Or maybe we both fucked up by not having deeper conversations about identity and fulfillment and mental health before things got to this point. I'm living in my own house, but feeling like a stranger here. My wife is working through years of identity issues and deception. And somewhere out there, 3 very confused gamers are probably still trying to process what the hell happened when they tried to visit their friend Emma in London. If anyone has been through anything remotely similar, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Right now, I'm just taking it day by day and trying to figure out what the hell to do next. Update. It's been a week since my original post, and I wanted to update everyone who took the time to comment and offer advice. I read every single comment, even the brutal ones calling me an idiot for not seeing the signs, and honestly, some of those were deserved. I've been processing a lot. First, thank you to everyone who shared similar stories or insights about online identities and dissociation. It helped me feel less alone in this bizarre situation. And to those who suggested specific questions to ask Sarah in therapy, several of those have been really valuable in our sessions. The couples counseling has been intense. We've had 3 sessions since I posted, and each one has peeled back another layer of this situation. Some things that have come out. Sarah's Emma persona started during a period when she felt completely invisible. She'd just moved to a new city for a job, didn't know anyone, was living alone in a tiny apartment, and was deeply lonely. She started gaming as a way to fill time, and when someone in the game asked where she was from, she impulsively said London because she'd always wanted to live there. One small lie led to another, and before she knew it, she'd created an entire fictional life. The reason she never stopped even after we met and got married is complicated. She said that being Emma was like having a pressure valve. When she felt stressed or inadequate in real life, she could log in and be this other person who had it all together. It was addictive. The validation she got as Emma, the friendships, the sense of being interesting and valued, it filled something that was missing. What really got me was when she admitted that she'd sometimes catch herself wishing she actually was Emma, that she could actually live in London in a cool flat with an exciting life. She'd look around our suburban house and feel trapped, then feel guilty for feeling trapped because she knew she had a good life that many people would envy. This led to a hard conversation about our marriage and whether she actually wants the life we've built together. She insisted she does, but the therapist pushed back and asked if she's ever truly grieved the life she fantasized about. Sarah broke down and admitted she spent years feeling like she settled, not for me specifically, but for a conventional, predictable life that felt safe, but not exciting. That was brutal to hear. But the therapist reframed it as actually a breakthrough moment, because Sarah was finally being completely honest instead of hiding behind personas or polite reassurances. We've also been talking about what our marriage looks like going forward. The therapist asked me point blank, if Sarah does the work to address her mental health and identity issues, and if she's fully transparent and committed to this marriage, can you forgive her and rebuild trust? Or is this a deal breaker? I didn't have an immediate answer, which I think says something. I asked for time to think about it. I've spent the past week really examining my own feelings and what I want. Here's what I've realized. I'm angry, but I'm not sure if I'm angry enough to end the marriage. I feel betrayed, but Sarah never cheated on me in the traditional sense. She lied and maintained a secret life, which is its own form of betrayal, but it's different from infidelity. I'm hurt that she didn't feel like she could be her full self with me, but I also recognize that I never asked deeper questions about her happiness or fulfillment. I think part of my hurt comes from ego. The idea that my wife needed to be someone else to feel interesting or valued feels like a reflection on me and our life together. But the therapist pointed out that Sarah's issues existed long before she met me, and this isn't actually about me being inadequate. It's about Sarah's relationship with herself. So here's where things stand. I've decided to commit to 6 months of intensive therapy, both couples and individual for each of us. At the end of 6 months, we'll reassess whether the marriage is working or if we need to separate. This gives Sarah time to work on her issues, gives me time to process and heal, and gives us both time to figure out if we actually want the same things in life. Sarah agreed immediately and seemed relieved to have a clear path forward, even if the outcome is uncertain. We've also made some practical changes. Sarah has taken a complete break from gaming and online communities, which she admits has been hard but necessary. She's been forcing herself to engage more in real-life activities and friendships. She joined a local photography club since Emma was supposedly a photographer. It's something she's actually interested in, and has been making an effort to be more present in our actual life together. I've been working on my own stuff too. The therapist pointed out that I tend to avoid difficult conversations and assume everything is fine unless explicitly told otherwise. I never checked in with Sarah about her happiness or dreams, or whether she felt fulfilled. I just assumed that because we weren't fighting and our day-to-day was pleasant, everything was good. I need to be more proactive about emotional intimacy and harder conversations. As for the 3 people who showed up at our house, one of them actually reached out to Sarah through email. The blonde woman wrote a long message saying that while she was initially angry and hurt, she'd had time to think about it and realized that the friendship she had with Emma, even if based on a lie, had been meaningful and valuable to her during a difficult time in her life. She said she was sorry Sarah was struggling and hoped she'd get help. She didn't want to continue the friendship, but she wanted Sarah to know she didn't hate her. Sarah cried when she read it and said it was more grace than she deserved. She wrote back apologizing again and thanking the woman for her kindness. The online community has mostly moved on, though apparently Emma has become a cautionary tale in certain gaming circles about catfishing and online deception.
Sarah has to live with that.
So that's where we are. It's messy and uncertain, and honestly still pretty painful. Some days I feel optimistic that we can work through this. Other days I wonder if I'm just delaying the inevitable end of our marriage. But I'm trying to approach it with honesty and openness, which is more than we had before. I'll probably post another update in a few months when we have more clarity. For now, I'm just taking it one therapy session at a time. To everyone who commented, thank you. This community helped me feel less crazy during the most surreal experience of my life. And for those of you who are maintaining online personas or secret identities, I'm not here to judge, but I will say that the longer you maintain the deception, the harder and more painful the inevitable reckoning becomes. Sarah wishes she'd come clean years ago. The weight of maintaining Emma was crushing her, even if she didn't fully realize it at the time. Anyway, thanks for reading this novel. I'll update again when there's more to tell.